Yes, that's all we do.
6 days.
Okay, great.
Mine was soon, we'll soon get out.
But thanks. I'll let her know that you were asking.
And I'll make sure to let Gail know.
Okay, thank
So
you.
it's not frantically looking for the paper. Yeah, you got it. It's okay.
I gathered that she was always writing. Really? Well, I don't even know. Okay. She just likes to.
Well, we'd like to welcome everyone, and we thank you all for coming out today. So we are very fortunate, as we had discussed the last time we had a community meeting in this room, and advised on what our overall timeline was in terms of the presidential search. We have a position that's in huge demand, and we had 90 applicants that responded. Resultingly, we had a short list. That interviewing committee of 12 that evaluated those applications very seriously with a great amount of due diligence. Had a short list that resultingly ended up in us interviewing 10, and overall 10 candidates that we were very impressed with. I speak locally on behalf of Dr. Paul Bivens and Ted Lewis, who are there in the back. Come on in. And so one of the things that, come on in. Dr. Zanjani, we'll move over here so we're not right at the door with Smoke Center. Oh, it's my husband. All right, come on in, Fred.
Blowing kisses too.
That's right.
Does he want to come in?
Sure.
Yeah,
We'd love for him to come in. Judah, we'll get him, Dr.
Yeah.
Zanjani. Would you mind going to get Fred for us? And
Fred,
thank you.
He's with Andre. I saw Andre. I don't know if he has time.
So overall, fortunately, we have 4 packed days. Hello, Fred.
That's my husband.
I assume our shepherds have taken good care of you today, Fred.
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. So overall, we have 4 fun-filled days that overall embrace the opportunity to bring these excellent candidates to our campus to be able to meet the faculty, be able to meet the staff, be able to meet the students, and be able to meet the community. So for you all being able to come out, we thank you so very much. And today, we are very fortunate to, starting yesterday, I should say, to have the Zanjanis that come to the shore and overall have hopefully enjoyed their last 24 hours. And we have a couple other special events for them, one of which is this community forum. And then that will wrap up, and then they'll be transitioning to head off the shore about 5 this afternoon. So we thank you for being here. You didn't come here to hear me, so thank you for being with us. And we'd like for you to provide a self-introduction and then open it up for questions, as you may. Okay, thank you, Dr. Zanjani.
Thank you. May I ask that you do the 5 minute for me again before we go into question and answer?
Sure.
Okay. All right, perfect. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I've had the pleasure of meeting a few of you in the room and just made some quick introductions. My name is Mellisia Zanjani. I am currently employed at Lincoln University in Lincoln University, Pennsylvania, which is extremely rural. We still have horse and buggies that we share with the Amish in the community, and we share resources of the road, if you would. Before that, hello, welcome, please. I spent more than 15 years in community colleges in 3 different states. So I have a very good idea of the underpinning of community colleges in Washington, New Jersey, and Maryland. And I loved my experience greatly. I'd often heard about, well, the universities have this, and the colleges have that. They have more resources. And so I'm one of those persons who was an experiential learner. So once, hello, welcome, sir. So once given the opportunity, I took the opportunity and went into universities. And my heart now brings me back to community colleges because of its concept of social justice. It is the great equalizer, and more than anything else, it is the community's college. So that's how I come here before you now. My PhD is in adult higher education with a specialty in community college leadership. My master's is in human resources development, which a specialty in program planning, assessment, and evaluation. And my bachelor's is in political science and psychology. I always thought I'd be in student development until I went to work at Towson University, and the VP of Institutional Advancement told me that when I asked for funding, 1, no, I can't have it, and 2, no, we don't have the time to teach you how to get it. So, as the stars would align and the universe was so great, I decided, and I literally remember saying to her, thank you for that. My next job will be fundraising. Because in all programs and all activities, at the end of the day, if there's no way to pay, the students, the faculty, the staff, the community cannot stay. So I'm here now with you at Eastern Shore Community College because it's, again, in my life, the perfect convergence of all of those different experiences that have now formed a summative point that I can learn from you and you can learn from me. And I can look forward to possibly being your next community college president. Because I believe in economic development and I believe in equalizing for communities. So that's my quick summation. And very quickly, on a personal note, you've met my husband. This is Fred. We have 2 daughters, 24 and 21. Both are entering grad school this fall. Well, one is already in grad school, the other one will be entering this fall. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Simba, our little 15-pound Shih Tzu Chihuahua mix. So that's who I am and how I come here before you now.
Thank you very much. So what we'd like you to do is to do just a brief introduction of yourself. Dr. Zanjani and Fred will be able to connect the dots. Very interesting to them. They have been most inquisitive every step of the way as far as the overall process. And they will relish knowing who you represent and in what capacity you serve in the community. Very important in terms of connecting all the dots in that vein. So a quick bit about today. Fred had an opportunity to be able to be with our host group as well. Importantly, to get a great snapshot of the Eastern Shore, our beloved heaven on earth on which we reside. I hope you've enjoyed yourself, sir.
Absolutely.
Great.
Thank you. It was great.
Very good. All right, well, it's great to have you. So what questions do we have? Diane?
Hi again. My name is Diane Davis. I am on the Foundation, and I just have one simple question. Have you ever taught?
Yes, ma'am. I teach communications and public relations.
Because I feel if you've taught, you know what it's like to be in the classroom.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
I will also share with you, I've taught 4 credit classes and I've taught non-credit classes. And they were all designed where I've been nicknamed at the time as a teaching VP. I believe there's always opportunities to teach and learn. So, yes, ma'am. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Diane. Robert?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm Robert Crockett. I met you a few moments ago and introduced myself at that time as a retired sheriff in this county. And I also serve on the Accomack County Board of Supervisors, which is like the county council and so forth. And we play a part in appointing members of the college board. First question would be, 2 questions. First question would be, if you are selected, what plans would you have for your first year? And then I'll follow up with a second question.
Is that a loaded question?
No, ma'am.
So, just very quickly, I'm going to answer you a little bit in reverse order.
That's fine.
Okay. How many of you are familiar with the Reboot Initiative? The Reboot Initiative? Let me ask it differently. How many of you are not familiar? 1, 2, 3. Thank you for sharing that. So the Reboot Initiative is a 3-year plan that was constructed with, my understanding, members of the Eastern Shore Community College and the Virginia Community College system. So when you ask me what it is that if I were selected as a president in the first year, I would say to you, launch those initiatives in that first year. If I had my presentation here, I would share with you, there are about 12 points in the first year that need to be accomplished. The number 1 is to hire the new president. So between this week and next week, we're on your way. There have been efforts already made of community members to do these programs. So The great thing that I like about the Reboot Initiative, and what I found tantalizing, to use that word, is that it's very prescriptive. So those of you who have not seen it, I encourage you to go to the website right now. And it's on the front page, and you can just search Reboot Initiative. So what I would do is launch all of those initiatives in that first year. Oftentimes when you're interviewing or looking to become the next president for the community college or any institution, we spend easily 3 to 5 years trying to find our sea legs, figuring out who the people are, what the places are like, what the programs are needed, what is the price that needs to be accommodated, and what's the related promotion for them. In this case, the new president who's coming in for Eastern Shore Community College, it's all been laid out, and it's very prescriptive. So in my first year, I would look to learn about that program, learn the underpinnings of the program, because it wasn't something that was just pulled out of thin air. There is data, quantifiable and qualitatively data. I would review that information and look at how we can implement all of those initiatives.
Thank you. Second question.
Yes, sir.
Second question would be, I think it's quite common when the economy is strong, attendance at the enrollment in community colleges will drop. Economy is slow, the attendance of community college will increase. What would you bring to the college to try to correct that, to try to add students during a good economy as opposed to losing students?
Excellent question. Thank you. Did you all hear that? No, thank you. I'll flip that question. What would I bring to it? Because of my background and the experiences that I've had in multiple types of institutions, and being able to do teaching, being able to fundraise, being able to write grants, being able to develop new programs and activities, I would bring a diverse and innovative way of looking at how those programs will be used, such that we can essentially, what I call, smooth out that enrollment, such that when times are good and when times are bad, it's just a necessity of all organizations. And so being able to smooth it out in a way that allows us to keep on a steady pace, finding that sweet spot. So looking at developing new programs for the short term and the long term, that it doesn't matter if you're employed or unemployed or underemployed. There's something here that Eastern Shore Community College could do for you. And being able to capitalize on that and promote it, because we've got this community, we've got high poverty and high wealth. Being able to use that so that it's flexible with the economy. And it doesn't matter how it, in the term of economics, it doesn't matter the elasticity of how it ebbs and it flows. What matters is that we've developed programs that can withstand, at least on a short term and a long term, those programs. And that's what I would bring to it, is a different approach. What I didn't talk about, it was one of the conversations during lunch today where one of my lamentations that I know I'll be able to correct is that after I did my doctorate, 5 years later, I started an MBA program. And I did that because I want to understand the underpinning of the economics and how we can smooth out that, such that no matter where we are, we can continue on serving the students and the community that we serve. And that's what I bring, all of those different background areas.
Thank you.
My pleasure, thank you.
So following up on Robert's questions, thank you, Robert. One of the questions that the Zanjanis had last night was, in so many cases and other areas you hear about the political turmoil that exists with college systems that are funded by localities. Thankfully, we relayed to them that overall politics don't factor into what we do here, which is a great thing. And because we have the 2 counties that comprise Virginia's Eastern Shore, something we probably take for granted. Very seldom do you even think about that. When we have a need, we reach out, and I don't think we mentioned the local funds to support the site improvements for the new building. Added up to be $1 million contribution from the 2 counties. And we asked and they provided. So that, importantly, is a very positive part of what we have in terms of an excellent working relationship with the 2 counties. So very important from that perspective. So.
Thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, agreed.
Yep.
Very good.
Follow-up questions? Okay. Yes, sir. Dr. Jenkins.
Dick Jenkins, I met you earlier. I am a retired president here at the college. I spent 25 years prior to that as Dean of Student Services, so fairly good knowledge of this place. You obviously know this is the smallest community college in Virginia.
Second. Paul Daphne? No?
Yeah.
That's what I was told again. So what's the
This
second?
is the smallest.
This is the smallest for sure. But I have to correct someone who shared
And
it.
the population here is only about half of what you normally expect in a geographic area for a community college. You're familiar with the reboot issue, so you know this institution has challenges. With all that information, tell me the 2 or 3 primary reasons that you applied for this presidency.
Growing up in Maryland, I had often been told that Eastern Shore was unwelcoming. So one could think, oh, I'm going to have some pause. But now that I'm an adult, I don't hear those conversations as unwelcoming. I hear those conversations as there is so much collegiality here, so much friendliness. More than anything else, the thing that I've learned today, last night, through the state conversation, is that great and significant passion for what this community college does for its community. I'm a first-generation college student. If it wasn't for education, I would not have developed economically at all, for myself or for my family. So that's kind of 1 and 2. Second, from a perspective of all that this community has to offer, the greatest thing that I heard this morning from like 5 students, and a lot of it was like anecdotal. So I met a young woman, young student, with 3 children. She talked about how this community, because it's so small, has mattered in her life and made a big difference. She could not have gone anywhere else and managed her life with her 3 kids. So she's thankful for that. I believe in that from a social justice perspective. Number 3 reason, the scenery, the food. I love seafood, always have. I've had the great pleasure of being able to dine at several establishments now, and the people themselves, their linkage to the history, to the heritage. Just as when I was walking up the steps and I was introducing myself to many of you and learning who you are, and when you said that you had been the former president, my immediate next question was, wow, would I be able to reach out to you and to connect, or would I not? And your answer was, sure, but you gotta come to me. Which is important, right? That's important for the community. And here in Eastern Shore, the roots run deep. They're like willow trees. And so for me, I'm looking for the place where I can make a difference and use all of these different skill sets that I've gained throughout my lifetime in a place that wants me to use them, that will allow me to be innovative, that will allow me to connect with each of you individually and collectively, to take it to either whatever you want to call it, the next level, the next step, the next phase. I shared with the people in the last forum that oftentimes people view community colleges as hubs. And I've often heard it described as like an animal, a sea animal, an octopus. And a hub is something that kind of sits in the back with the octopus, and then they send out the tentacles to do what needs to be done, and then bring it back home. For me, community colleges, and particularly here at Eastern Shore, and like you just said, it's small. So I would offer to that conversation that it's small and it's mighty. I heard that consistently from the students, I heard it from the faculty, I heard it from the staff, I heard it from the community members who volunteered to be involved with this. And like I just learned, so I trust, but I must verify, because I was told that it was the second smallest, and then you say to me, no, it's the first smallest. Even more so, even more greater opportunity to make a difference. You know, the very heart of definition of philanthropy is we provide an opportunity for individuals, organizations, business, and industry to invest in something greater than themselves. This is small and mighty. You cannot beat that as far as a matched opportunity. And last, for my reason, I don't know it's more than 2 or 3.
Keep going.
And last for my reason is it's the perfect storm, perfect segue perfect connection, perfect intersection as to where I am in my career and in my life. And looking to work with individuals that are genuinely committed to that same type of social justice and economic impact. And that's all I've heard since I started this whole interview process. You know, when I began with the application, when I met with members on the committee in Richmond. I wouldn't want to be a part of that. And the last piece, you said this earlier, who wouldn't want to paddle to a winery? Such beauty, so much to offer. It's perfect. It would be ideal to be a part of that. And I would welcome that opportunity.
Okay. Yes, Roberta?
Yes, I'm Roberta Newman. I met you earlier. I'm president of the Eastern Shore Community College Foundation and am involved in a lot of other organizations too. But when you first did your opening remarks, you mentioned the importance of community and that was part of this atmosphere in education, that it was a community college that really appealed to you. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about your own leadership style and how that leadership style could be used to promote that spirit of community, both within the organization here, amongst the students, amongst the staff, and amongst the people who are working behind the scenes, as well as outreach into the community. Just what kind of leadership style could we expect from you?
So I can share with you what has been shared with me. I have been very fortunate, and I've had something called a 360-degree evaluation. Many of you are familiar with that. It's horizontally and vertically. And people that you tangentially touch will say to you, I saw her in Form X, and this is how she was. And I've been very fortunate in having had that experience. And so the conversations that came back to me were that I am collaborative, I'm a team builder, I believe in people, and most importantly, I'm very passionate about everything that I do. As a first-generation college student, I knew that it was through the individual and collective community connections that I was able to succeed in college. And I would like that, I cherish that opportunity for being able to do that. I'm one who believes in people. I am a pragmatic optimist. I genuinely believe that we're all working to be better than we are and to leave circumstances in better places than we inherited them. So as a leader, that's what I bring. I want to hear from people. How can we help you, and how can you help us? And most of the time, it's very difficult to get to that conversation because we allow the ism, the it, the thing to interfere. And kind of back to your question, to be hearing from last night and all through this morning, we don't have those kinds of problems on the face. We genuinely are committed to helping one another, to making a difference. And as a leader, I fundamentally believe in that as far as the art and the science of leadership. Now, having said that, all very theoretical, all passionate, all very emotive, I'm also the kind of leader that believes in data. I'm a huge data wonk. I believe in making informed decisions. We have to trust what was said, but still have to be verified. Because of that approach, I also use data. So one of the things that in my program, my doctoral program, leadership informs research, and research informs leadership. I love reading. I love finding out what are the best practices and using them, and helping people to see themselves as a part of being a part of that conversation. Being a change agent, that's the kinds of things that you would expect from me, should I be so fortunate to be asked to be your next community college president here at Eastern Shore Community College.
Okay. Next question. Barbara, I know you have something on your mind. What would you like to know from Dr. Zanjani? Barbara was on the state board, and fortunately lives there in Hancock. Her husband Steve is with your husband this morning and this afternoon. So, what question comes to mind?
In the past, this college has had presidents come and go, and so there's a concern for an expectation and an expectation for longevity. And from the description in the newspaper article, you've come and gone from a number of places in a very short period of time.
Yes.
And I know that that has been in the past here a concern.
Thank you for that question. I wondered when it would come. I want to answer you in a two-part. The last president was here for 9 years.
Yes.
So is that considered short?
No, that was fine. It was, the previous one was here for 3 years, and it caused great consternation.
Was that the one, I'm sorry, if you'll allow me, I'll engage the conversation through a little bit of a dialogue, just so I have a little bit of context, and then I'm gonna give you my answer. So you were here.
My successor, I was here for 10 years. My successor was on about 3.
So it's been the one for about 3. Okay, great, thank you. If you look beyond the last 5 years, I typically stay between 6 to 9 years. For me, and this is one of the things that I've shared, I'm looking for a place that I can retire. I've got a long time though before I retire. And so I'm looking to join a community that is going to join with me as their next president, where I can be there for a while. And I thank you for asking that question, because I can hear that consternation. The kinds of things that would make me want to leave are the kinds of things that I'm not finding here thus far. Unless there's some secret closeted place that I haven't seen, somebody hasn't shown me. It would be an honor and a privilege to be here. And I can actually see that I would be here for a while. I don't see where I'd be looking to pick up after 3 years or 6 years. Because to be a president, like I indicated earlier, you need a good 5, 10 years to really, you need a good 5, 10 plus years. And if the community college would have me, then I would look to be here for a while. It's just beautiful. Physically, I almost want to say mentally, the students, you know, it's peaceful. So I couldn't see that occurring. Unless you all decided you didn't want me anymore, and I hope that I would have, on the incoming, shown that I am worthy, that you would not reach a conclusion like that. Does that help with that? So thank you.
Okay, other questions that come to mind? Yes.
I have one. So, in the previous session, you know that I work here, but my husband and I also own a small business. And in the fall, we had a visit from the chancellor and another member of the state board. And that member of the state board mentioned in rural places, entrepreneurship is the way to go. So just your thoughts on how you might encourage that, because you've talked a lot about economic development. So if you can speak particularly to entrepreneurship here.
Entrepreneurship is what gave us Microsoft. Well, not for 2 guys, a few guys, in their garage, starting a small shop. We would not have the technology that we currently have. Entrepreneurship is what gave us the Lyft and the Uber. For some people that don't have access to vehicles, it changed their world. And they're not a taxi service or a car service. They're a technology service because someone thought differently about how to bring all of those different elements together. Entrepreneurship, we had the great pleasure of staying at the Inn and thank you, Old Nancock. Thank you. What lovely people. They've been here now, they told me, for a few years. That's their entrepreneurship. To be able to go out and sit on their porch and have what they call the wind down. We had a few moments of it before we left for dinner last night. It's that entrepreneurship, because they wanted to leave everything that Boston was offering and come here to make a change. So if you ask me how I feel about entrepreneurship, thank you for it. If it were not for entrepreneurship, we would not have what we have. Now, from the aspect of being the community's college, then we need to work on different ways of helping them to grow and understand the programs and activities related to being an entrepreneur. So when I was at Hartford Community College, we had a small business development center, helping them to understand what it means to be an entrepreneur, to fill out the proper paperwork, to understand the basics of marketing and communications, to be able to raise the capital to build their program. It is a necessity, it is a necessary component of who we are and what we do as a community college. And being able to participate with that, right here amongst yourselves and the students that I met this morning and the other students, are the next big idea. Those are the Teslas. You know, the Tesla with the car. You know, one of his philosophies is this concept of entrepreneurship. He's not trying to make it proprietary. His entire platform is open source coding. He's telling you, this is how I make my cars. Here, some entrepreneur go make it better. It's that entrepreneurial spirit that kept him in that mode. And that is how I would look at community colleges being able to participate and expand. It starts with us. It also starts with them. But it becomes a part of that exchange, that dialogue about how you engage one another. Thank you for your question. Thank you all for these wonderful questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Dr.
Hi.
Zanjani. My name is Joan,
Yes, Ms. Jones.
and I want to ask you a question. I work at the, I work at the unemployment office, and we also help individuals find jobs. My question and my concern, you may hear it in my voice, is that there is often a division between those whom we need to reach in the community, who need our services, and likewise those who we need to reach who need the services of the community college.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a invisible wall of fear of, oh, I can't go there, I don't belong there. And so my question is, how would you reach out to the community to encourage the young men, the young women, the seniors to come to the college, learn how to do Microsoft, learn how to balance your checkbook, come and take the class on resume writing? What would be your plan as a teacher, as an educator, as a leader? How do you see yourself reaching out to that part of the community that sees themselves as invisible?
Excellent. All of your questions are excellent, and they're very timely. Because we're living in a time where we need more educated and trained individuals. So oftentimes being able to show them that they don't have to necessarily get an associate's degree or bachelor's or doctorate, but they could start with a certification program so that they can contribute and make a difference to move off of unemployment. There's a program which ironically started in New Jersey and is now branched out, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with ALICE, you know, the asset limited, income constrained, employed. I used to call that middle bar of persons who are almost one check away from being homelessness, or they're constantly having to choose between whether they eat, have a roof over their head, or buy medicine. How do we, in this 21st plus century, get to a place that we still have a sizable population that's in this middle of a bar that used to be pretty thick that is now shrunk and is actually starting to fracture and bend, which is the group that you're referencing. So my role, if I was so fortunate to be chosen as your president here, is to use what I call the wagon wheel effect. Many of you are familiar with that. So you know you have the epicenter, and then you have the spokes that reach out across and between each of the different elements. So looking to bring in the not-for-profit agencies, the organizations, the business, the industry, and being the college to be the hub of that, to connect those resources so that that individual, those groups of individuals, can see themselves that, yes, I can. And sometimes it starts with being able to take the program to where they are, whether it be their house of worship, whether it be the community center like the YMCA. Sometimes it's being right there with them and showing them small incremental steps that shows that, yes, I can. Now, I can speak so very passionate to that because I will tell you, I was a traditional A student that I didn't think I was supposed to go to college. To this day, 30 plus years later, there are still only three college-educated people in my entire family. I'm the first. So to this invisible group, I was one of them. In fact, my friends told me that I was strange. How dare me want to go away to college? How dare I want to leave my hood? And I kept thinking, well, maybe I should stay here and make a difference. But I was fortunate to be surrounded by others who were employed at the community college, my teachers in K through 12, my colleagues and others who I worked with at Kentucky Fried Chicken for $4.13 an hour, who basically said to me, the best way is to go out and experience these things and be able to bring that knowledge, those skills, and those abilities back and show them that they're not invisible and that they can, in fact, do college-level work and succeed. So it's kind of like stacking the programs from the certification. Then once they are, in some cases, it's a GED. Then to the certification. Then continuing on with redesigning the programs to get a few credit programs and start to see a transcript. It's a living, real document that I didn't know I could do this. You know, the young lady I met this morning with her 3 children, she said, I never imagined I could do this, but because of the strength of this small community college, I'm here and I'm going to finish. So there are so many ways, and when I look at this with the spokes on the wheels, bringing all of those pieces together to work for the benefit of student success. Because lastly, this invisible group or marginal group, or whatever term we apply to it, that floor is like rice paper. When it cracks and you start falling, there is no floor anymore. You just keep falling. So we have to use what is now called, in the literature, intrusive advising, where you're wrapping around that student no matter where they are and help them making that difference. Whether that be financial, whether that be philosophical in the brain, to have a faculty member or a staff or another student, yes, you can do this. That's the intrusive model now. And it's making a huge difference in all the literature for small rural community colleges especially, because they're able to persist and graduate, which begets more success every step of the way. So thank you for the question. Thank you all.
Thank you. Other questions? Andre, I know that you and Steve were probably asking Fred questions today that you should have been asking. So what do you want to hear from her that you were otherwise attempting to hear from Fred?
Well, I mean, honestly, her question sort of
Spot on.
Yeah, it was spot on with where I'm coming from. So I'm Andre Elliott. I'm the director of the local YMCA.
That's a nice facility.
And I see a lot of what she's talking about. Those folks that just need to figure out that next step in their life. And so I guess, if I were to ask a question, it would be how do you draw on those adult learners? People like. So I'll tell a story on myself, y'all. I said to Fred and Steve, those guys, I took the journeyman's way through my undergrad. I went, ODU, Randolph-Macon, everything until I got through Regent University. And one of the things while I was a working person that kind of got me back into it was I took a class here at the community college. It was a business class, and I did business every day as part of my life. And I saw it was something I understood, I knew, and I can do, and it helped make me go back and finish my bachelor's. Now I'm in a master's program, but there's so many people out there that are in that sort of limbo of, all right, I've been to college for a few years, I've done something here and there. How do you engage that person and get them to come back and but I think that kind of answered it, so.
Well, I will expand a little bit more. What I didn't talk about with that are two critical elements. And the first one is that every step of that process, you provide opportunities for celebration. Every step of the process. You get an A, you took the test. You took the assessment. You celebrate and you let them know this is that first step to the next step, and you celebrate it. And then, of course, as someone who does marketing and communications, tell the story. We don't tell it enough, and it's not enough to simply tell the story and have it advertised in the newspapers. Because not everybody's reading the newspapers. You must cascade the communications. So that will be through print, through digital. And the number one thing that still holds true today, even though we take it for granted, is word of mouth. If you looked at a pie chart for communications, and this is one of the things that I would share with my students, and they're just shocked because they think, oh no, it's social media. Because I asked them, what's the number one way for communications and promotions and publicity? Social media, Instagram. Keep going, tell me some more. How do you get your information? Oh, I look at the television. Oh, okay. What kind of stations are you looking at? Because you limit which stations based on your interests. So I then challenge them to think differently than the stations that they were looking at. I ask them what is something they absolutely don't want to look at, which is the polar opposite. And then I give them the assignment to look at that for a week and come in and do a story on it to educate the rest of the class. Tell the story. Because the greatest learners of the program are the ones who begin teaching it. So in effect, you telling your story, you've now become the teacher and talking about how to get to that marginalized community.
That's the fundraiser, I mean.
But you become the ultimate storyteller. You have to be. It's prerequisite of who we are and what we do with the whole concept of fundraising and looking to make a difference. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for being with us. So, Steve, anything?
Okay. She said she was on a lunch hour, so she has to go back to work. Being flexible with that kind of a conversation and with your timing. Sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah, my name is Steve Johnson, Barbara's other half, and although we both focus on education in one way or another, I'd like to take a look at the opposite side, on the upper end. We've got Wallops, and I recognize that apparently Maryland seems to have more opportunities at Wallops than possibly Virginia might. Yet it's in our state, it's supported by funds from the state, and I'm privileged to sit on the Commonwealth Transportation Board that has some activity and involvement in sort of oversight issues with Wallops. So I'd be interested in your thoughts and ideas of how this community college, which is so critical to so many things that happen on the shore, and witness, if you go up and look at all the pictures that are around the entryway and the atrium, those were all pictures of people doing work with their hands. And every facility that the photographer, when she went around to take pictures, she was there to say, I'm taking pictures and this is what I'm doing. Everyone said, you know, I either went to the community college or people that are here working from there went to the community college. It's such a critical asset to the shore. And yes, we're small, but small doesn't mean we can't think big. So if we're thinking big and looking at job opportunities, especially in high-tech industries, you know, STEM facilities, and at the same time looking at what this college offers to high school students that are doing dual enrollment, that had articulation agreements to be able to move from this college into four-year institutions in the state. I'd just be interested in your thoughts on the other side, not that what hasn't been talked about, because we did share some time talking about Alice today at lunch. Did we not?
Yes.
Okay, so anyway, my question is about the higher end.
So in the conversation about Wallops seemingly, and I guess, in providing these opportunities more in Maryland, even though it's right here in Virginia. I guess I'd ask the question almost with come the fundraising adage, is are we even asking them to provide more opportunities that are equal or better than what was being done? Now, on the funding side of it, one of the things that I found in Maryland is that Maryland invests pretty heavily in higher education and providing opportunities. When I was there 20 years ago, we had something called a PDIP, which is a private donor incentive program. And it was a one-to-one match for community colleges to build our endowment. So in my 5 years there, we've raised, air quotes on when I look back on it now, $7 million. And then the state matched it for $7 million to help us expand it. We also had a information program and technology program, which all donations that were given as gift in kind from, at the time, companies like Cisco, CISCO, not the food service systems and services company, they matched that dollar for dollar. So doing innovative and creative ways that the state of Virginia could do with its transportation, with its programming, and with its access are some of the key initiatives that we look at. What are the best practices that others are doing that helps to encourage and facilitate those types of programs? And how do we look to bring them to Virginia? Last, I'll say to that, as part of the process, I had the opportunity to meet with the Chancellor. And the Chancellor has shared with me this program about the welding, where the Virginia community colleges are front-loading the funds. And then once the persons, the students, in that 15-week period have graduated, completed the program, then the state reimburses them. That is, to use an old cliche, that is severely out-of-the-box thinking for state entities to think about how to fund workforce development programs like that beyond the purpose. That's huge. Being able to capitalize and exponentially expand that and think through how that could be done. And working with the people at Wallops to be able to do that, because they will tell us what it is they need and when they need it. How do we collectively work together to change that paradigm is pretty important. Do I get to the heart of it? This stuff I love. It's like, yes.
On behalf of the college and the Zanjanis, we thank Andre Elliott, and we also thank Steve Johnson and Paul Custis for taking your day to be able to showcase the shore, Fred. So we thank you all for your benevolence.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to showcase the show.
Just lovely.
Roberta.
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to just play off a little bit, both Andre and Steve's questions.
Sure. Yes, ma'am.
And I'm thinking that the college president is really the face of the college out in the community. And one of the things that I think is a strength of the Virginia Community College system is the strength of leadership and philanthropy that happens at all the colleges across the state. We just had the annual Leadership and Philanthropy Luncheon where we honored one of our donors this year in Richmond. And I'm wondering how you look at that whole idea of inspiring a spirit of leadership in philanthropy. There are so many causes on the Eastern Shore that need help and need support. And this is one of the really important ones, but how would you as the college president approach encouraging, strengthening the philanthropy that is here?
So let me start a minute. I shared this a little bit, so I'll reemphasize again. The very definition of philanthropy is about investing in something greater than yourself. And what I've seen thus far is so many people who are galvanized to invest in something greater than themselves. What I see the role, not only as the face of the community college president here for Eastern Shore, I see the role of this individual is to not only provide that opportunity, but at the end of the day, you must ask. I find too many presidents who will say, I don't like fundraising, I will not fundraise, I'll let the vice president do it, I'll let the director of development do it, I'll let the board. So in my role, not only being the face and being able to galvanize and coalesce, at the end of the day, I still have to ask. And I will tell you honestly, I've rarely been told no. What I've often been told is not now. Or, how do we think about that slightly differently, that I can support it? So in this capacity, being able to bring those parties together to galvanize and coalesce them and see that need and have that perfect match for match such that they will connect and see the value of it. Every cause, each of them has a little bit of different bend on it that helps to galvanize the community. How do we, back to the wheel, the horizontal and the vertical connection of bringing that dialogue together? How would this leadership role, and that's how my perspective is, because that's my role on leadership. I always, not sometimes, always look for the way that we can facilitate that dialogue and that conversation to help someone do better and be better. And many times it's because of lack of funding. So I'll ask businesses, I'll ask individuals. And I've heard of so much from so many people looking to give of their time. And now I'm looking to find that opportunity to give of their treasure. You've heard of the 3 T's? Time, talent, treasure. Yeah, the fun is. The 3 T's, time, talent, treasure. Most people who are on boards, it's about that time, talent, and treasure. Every board. So looking for that opportunity that we can, one, identify them, identify who the stakeholders are, identify the unmet needs, try to change the language, if you would, and being able to make the decisions that would effect change that not only is on a short-term change, but it becomes something that's exponential. It's beyond the 2 + 2 is 4. It becomes a 2 cubed to get you to 8. And having the opportunity to serve in this role gets that most ideal situated spot to be able to do that.
Okay. We have time for one additional question. And we'll leave that to you. Are there any burning questions that you have of the community that would, that otherwise did not come up when you met with faculty, met with staff, met with students, met with board, that is important for you to know as we get ready to wrap up? Anything that comes to mind?
So we talked a bit about the reboot. For the moment, just for the moment, put that on the shelf. You're the community. You're engaged. You're involved. What are the top 3 or 4 things that you want to see this community college president achieve in the first year?
Fair enough. Volunteers to respond. Test time. Andre.
I'd like to see the college do a little bit more with leadership development, working with, everything doesn't have to be a certificate or or an associate's or whatever, but having some leadership development, maybe seminars, workshops, things like that, to work with community leaders or, those that are, new in a position that are trying to figure out how to lead better. I'd like to see more like that, because one of the things I think we have, especially with some of our younger executives, is a lack of knowledge about how to lead.
Great. So that's one. And before you leave today, I want you to take time to talk to Dr. Bivens. He's got an interesting update for you. Robert?
Your first year to get to know the people, sure. You have to sell yourself first.
Okay.
You would be the leader of the community college. And to do that, they need to get to know you. Share with them what you want to do with the college, where you want to see the college to go. But for me, that would be important to you to get to know the people. It'll take a lot of time. But that would be a very important 12 months.
Roberta?
I would second that. I think that's extremely important too. But I also think when I first came on the college foundation board about 6 years ago, I was amazed at everything I didn't know about this community college. And I thought, wow, it's the best kept secret on the Eastern Shore. So along with getting to know you as you can become a vehicle for really letting everybody up and down the shore, not just in the Accomack-centric area, excuse me for that.
That's okay, that's okay.
But the entire shore, really knowing and seeing this as a place that is a great resource for them, and that you can make that happen.
Thank you. Fourth answer to that question? Any other volunteers? Dr. Bivens?
Have activities that you would open up the campus to bring the community to the campus to see what's going on here, so that let people know that this is their campus, and you'd be surprised.
Do we have time to just share something about that?
Sure.
We had a wonderful oyster roast back a little while that Eve was very responsible in putting together, and many people in this room, I think, were there. And when I came in that night, I went into the ladies' room to straighten myself up. And there were two young women in the ladies' room, and they were saying, "Can you believe how cool this place is? You know, we live down in Northampton. I have never even been here, but I heard some neighbor that said their child was taking a dual enrollment course. And I thought, well, I'm gonna come to the oyster roast and see what this place is about." And I just sat there, you know, and so I'm just gonna listen to what they're saying. And they both, by the time they left the restroom, were planning on enrolling for courses that they wanted to do as a result of, for the first time, seeing this place. So it definitely has an impact, and that's the kind of thing that we need to do, both out there, being out there, but bringing people in here.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Diane, yes?
Just adding on to what Roberta has said, normally when the students are transitioning from the middle school, used to be the combination elementary middle, then they get a field trip to the high school. So maybe it would be good, maybe if the seniors in the schools could actually get a field trip here, because normally the dual enrollment kids are coming, these are your top students that you have in the schools, but some of the other students get a chance to actually come and take a trip here, and I don't think that's done, but I think that would be good based on what you're saying.
Going out, bringing them back.
So we appreciate your presence. We have been very intentful about the transparency given the community as well as everyone here the opportunity to get to know each of the candidates. So very regimented day. We thank you for helping to fulfill that with this important meeting. Your feedback is very important to us. We want to hear what you're thinking about the time that we spent, hard to believe, in the last 60 minutes. If you're digitally inclined, you can go on our website, provide feedback specific to what you actually have been able to experience today. We thank you so very much. If you would like hard copies, I believe Judith has hard copies. So as you as you exit, Judith will provide you the hard copies. So vital for us to have your feedback overall. And as we transition from here, what we'll do, Steve and Andre and Fred, is we'll be able to meet very briefly before we depart with Dr. Zanjani and Paul and Ted and myself. So we thank you all. We look forward to hopefully being able to see everybody back here tomorrow at 2:30 again with Dr. Pagan. And then again, if you're unable to come tomorrow, put next Tuesday and next Wednesday on your calendars. I believe that's the 7th and the 8th, if I'm not mistaken, of May, where we'll be here at 2:30 as well for the final two. So thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.